Hello, I'm Nick Clegg. I'm here in my office answering questions on the UK Youth Parliament Forum. Kingston 1991 has asked me about our policy on tuition fees, and Kingston 1991 feels let down by the Liberal Democrats' policy of tuition fees. Let me be clear, we are the only party which will scrap tuition fees. They're wrong. I think it's just plain wrong that young people who are studying hard are having to leave university, college, with this dead weight of debt around their necks before their adult life has even started. We will scrap tuition fees, but we want to treat students like grown-ups, and everybody knows that money's tight now, and when money's tight you can't do everything exactly as we could when there was much more money around. So what we're saying is we will scrap them, but it'll just take a little bit longer. It'll take 6 years rather than doing it overnight as we once thought we could. And we'll do that by first, immediately in year one, scrapping tuition fees for all last year students in their final year of study, and then we'll work down to the other years, extend it to part-time students, and so over a 6-year period this injustice of tuition fees will be scrapped. Kyle 15 asked me about votes at 16 and what do I think about that, what do the Liberal Democrats think. I think that of course people should vote at the age of 16 or be able to vote at 16. You know, the government can ask a 16-year-old to join the army and fight in Afghanistan and possibly lose their life in Afghanistan, but that 16-year-old is not, or that 17-year-old is not allowed to vote for the government who's asking them to lay their life on the line. That is just wrong. If you can ask someone to die for this country, they should have the right to vote for the government of the country. So I can absolutely guarantee that we will continue to campaign for votes at 16. Mossad asks, what do I think political parties can do to improve our appeal to young people? Apparently, I think I read here that Mossad was a member of the party for a year but didn't really get anything out of it. I'm sorry to hear that. I think my experience is that one of the things that anybody wants, but particularly young people want when they get involved in politics, is to feel they're being listened to and to feel they've got a role in how political parties develop their ideas. And the Liberal Democrats, we're different for so many reasons, different to the old red-blue, blue-red politics of the Conservative and Labour parties. But one of the big ways we're different is that I can't make up policy just like that. We are a democratic party, as the name suggests. We're the Liberal Democrats. We believe in democracy in the country, of course, but we believe in internal democracy as well. So our policies are formed by members, thousands of members up and down the country, sending in their ideas, but then also coming to our conferences where we formally adopt and change policy. So I hope if you want to be involved in politics, joining the Liberal Democrats is the way to get really involved in the way in which the political parties work. Grace 1996 asks about the lack of amenities, particularly in rural areas, and the real problem, of course, of having to travel a long way, and the lack of affordable. I think Grace 1996 is talking about the need for free public transport. I think the problem is that, firstly, of course, in many parts of the country, rural parts of the country, there just isn't a regular bus service for young people to use if they live in dispersed areas or villages or communities which aren't. When I was talking to a friend of mine who's one of the MPs in a very rural part of Somerset, and he was saying, for some young people, it's really difficult. They feel really cut off because there just isn't a regular bus service where they can get onto the bus and meet their friends or go somewhere to the nearest town where there might be a swimming pool or a public gym that they might want to use. So I think we have to make bus services more available, and it's frankly a scandal that bus services have been privatised in the way that they have, so that in fact in pretty well any part of the country outside London, bus companies can now chop and change routes, cancel routes, chop and change fares without asking any local people. I want to see the way that buses are regulated in London applied in every part of the country, whether it's in Lincolnshire, which Grace 1996 refers to, so that the patchwork of bus services where, for instance, in some areas they do provide affordable tickets to young people are spread much more evenly around the country. Annie asks about how successful do I think the UN Climate Change Conference in Copenhagen was. Well, it was a spectacular failure and disappointment. if we're not careful, I think we might, if we don't make up for the failure of an ambitious agreement in Copenhagen, Copenhagen might go down in history books as the moment that political leaders around the world failed to face up to what is the biggest crisis that this generation faces, which is chronic and escalating climate change. I think it was particularly worrying, frankly, that the US President, Barack Obama, who in so many other respects I think people look to him for hope in terms of global affairs, basically cut a deal with the Chinese government and cut out and ignored Europe, which was pressing for a much more ambitious agreement. So I think Europe we need to work out how, as a European bloc, because we're only really going to be able to punch above our weight if we speak with a single strong European voice, can get the Chinese and the Americans back to the negotiating table and say, look, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. We need big cuts in carbon dioxide emissions which are legally binding, which all of us sign up to. Otherwise, we're selling the planet short, and we're selling the livelihoods of future generations short. Is that really what this generation of political leaders want to be remembered for? And finally, Liam says that in Scotland there was an agreement between the Liberal Democrats and the MSYPs to introduce one new draft piece of legislation a year in the Scottish Parliament. Could we do the same here? As you know, the system in Westminster is quite different to Holyrood, so the House of Commons is frankly a bit of a stitch-up where the government of the day can do what it likes, so sometimes it's much more difficult for opposition parties in Westminster to get new legislation on the statute books as it is in younger parliaments like Holyrood. So I wish we could have the freedom to say, yeah, we will be able to table a bill whenever we like. It just doesn't work like that. It's this stitch-up in Westminster where everything is done according to the wishes of the government whips rather than the wishes of the British people is one of the many reasons I think we need to completely change the way things are run here. But in a sane parliament where things work better, yeah, I would love to think that Liberal Democrats could work with members of the Youth Parliament and other groups in tabling new draft legislation to force the government of the day to do the things that you want us to do.